Welcome to Retroford. Today's fitting guide is going to be how you fit a flywheel to a Zetec. First we're going to run through the two flywheels that we do for a 215mm Pinto style clutch. Now you can use both of these with either a Type 9 or the MX5 gearbox that we do, and we do several different clutches as well, which we'll mention in a later video. So this one here is a lightweight one that we do, which is machined from billet steel, and you can see it's very light. Now both of these dimensionally when bolted on the engine are the same. That's the lightweight one, and typically if you've done some engine modifications, you're over sort of 200 horsepower maybe, then you would lean towards this one, get the spinning mass down. But if you've got a standard engine, then you would probably opt for a sintered one, which is approximately sort of 8.5, 9 kilos these are. And again, these come with the inductive ring on the back here. This is 36-1, and this picks up on the crank sensor. Now, sometimes we get asked the question as to how you can fit these and get the orientation correct for that. And what Ford have done with the crank is they've done one offset bolt hole, and it's sort of difficult to see and probably really difficult to see on camera, that one of these bolt holes is offset. So it means that you can only bolt it in one position. So you'd probably get 5 bolts in it in one position, 4 in another position. But in the way they're set up now, it will only go in one position. So they're the two options on the flywheel, and then the options are then on what flywheel bolts you can use. Now we always opt for a new flywheel bolt whenever fitting a flywheel. Some of the reason is that the crank itself has got a through hole in it, and the oil can seep through them. So these come with a sealant on, and that's a genuine Ford item. And you can use these on pretty much every engine. If you're going really big power, then you might want to go for the ARPs. Again, I've built a big power one, and just for safety's sake, we've used the ARP ones, which is a sort of upgrade from your standard Ford one. But in the 20 years that we've been selling Zetecs, building Zetecs, I've never had any of these genuine Ford bolts fail. So that pretty much runs through all of this. And then next we're going to move on and show you how to fit the Zetec flywheel to the engine. Okay, so now we're ready to fit the flywheel. And the most important thing when fitting the flywheel is to make sure that you haven't got any dirt or oil on either of these mating faces. Because if there's any oil or dirt on either of these faces, then this won't run true, and just a small amount of dirt on there will exaggerate the run out on that. So you need to make sure that that's clean. We've already cleaned this. I've cleaned this face here, and that's ready to fit. So it's just a matter of, as I say, lining up the bolt holes. No, and we keep going. Nope. It's going to be the last one, isn't it? Of course it is. So yeah. Yeah, 6 times lucky. So then just a matter of putting your bolts in. Again, when fitting anything like this, you wouldn't use a washer, because all the faces are machined. Then you wouldn't have a washer on these, and you don't do up any of the bolts tight at all until you've got them all in. And the next step is you need to secure the flywheel so it doesn't rotate. Now there's a few options on this. I've made myself this snazzy tool here which bolts on here and locates. If you rotate the flywheel, it will drop in, and that locks the flywheel. Now the other option is, you probably want somebody to give you a hand doing this, is to put a bolt in any one of these holes that I've used, and then you can use a pry bar and probably get one of your mates to hold it in a place when you do the bolts up, because you may not have the luxury of the specialist tool that I've manufactured here, which is, believe it or not, a bit of old flywheel here that allows me just to hold that securely and have my hands free. So once you've got that on, you just want to go round the bolts, and as I say, you don't tighten any of the bolts up completely. You just go round until the bolt's bottomed and there is no play in the flywheel. So you feel that, you can see when they come to a dead stop, and that's you want to do that with all the bolts. Okay, so now you've got all your bolts nipped up, and it's time to get your torque wrench out and torque them up. The sequence normally when you're doing anything of this nature that's circular is to, let's say we do this one first, then we move to the opposing one, and then carry on opposing like that. So it's 112 Newton meters you do these up to, 83 foot-pounds. So we're all locked up here. I'm going to start with this one, move over to the opposing one, and then follow that sequence. We do the opposing one, and then that's the 5th one, that's the 6th, and as a precaution it's worth going back to the first one and just checking that that's good. So that's all tight now. That's your Zetec flywheel fitted, and that rounds up how to fit a Zetec flywheel. Thank you very much.